our for our second. This is gonna be our second video in the segment. We're gonna show the second and third step. Again, this is systems of three linear equations for Algebra 2, section 2.7, number 16. So let's take a look at where we left off. In the first video, what we did is we did step one, and step one consisted of taking what was originally at one time in the beginning. We had three equations. We extracted one of the equations out, and we solved for z, right? We set z equal to something, and in doing so, this is what we had found. So this is what we found in step one in the first video. So we're continuing on. So picking up where we left off, we're now going to move on to step two. All right, step two. What step two does for us is now we're going to take and we're going to look at these, and we have two equations left that we haven't done anything with. So I'm going to take, for now, I'm going to take this equation. Doesn't matter which one. All right, actually, let's see. We'll go with this equation first. This is the first one up. Move down here just to have it working. Let me move this one up here, kind of get it out of the way. So I'll just give me a little more room to work. Okay. So we're going to go with the black equation now from our original three equations. And when I write this, I'm going to write it. I'm going to say, okay, 2x. I better move it up because I may run out of room. We'll say 2x minus y plus, now this is where we got to make our move, right? So plus z, okay? Here's our z, plus z. But what did we determine? We determined that z was equal to something. So in place of z now, I'm going to put the value. Remember we said there was a value assessed to it? Well, that value is 1 plus x minus 2y, right? That's the value that we placed on z. So I'm going to plug that value in now for my z. I'm going to say 1 plus x minus 2y, because all of these terms is the value equal to z, all of them together. And now I'm going to say it equals 4. Okay, because that's still part of the equation. So now what I want to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to find like terms. So what is 2x like? Well, 2x is like my x. And now, then I'm going to take my other like term, which is my negative y. Right? I want to carry my sign with the sign in front of the variable I want to carry with it, or the number. And so what is that like? Well, that is like my 2y. And since in the next one you'll see a negative, so we'll have to do a little bit something different, or not different, but kind of an extra step. But for now, I'm going to get rid of this for a minute so visually it'll look better to you. Whoa, sorry. Let me put that back. So I've got my like terms now, and they're all paired up, ready to roll. So over here I'm left with a positive 1. So what's like my positive 1 right here? Well, my 4 over here is like it, so I got to pair them up. So to do that, I'm going to subtract 1 and get rid of this term. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. 4 minus 1. I'm going to take my x terms. 2x plus x is 3x, because I can combine these like terms. and then I'm going to take my negative y, and I have negative 2y. So negative 1y plus negative 2y gives me a negative 3y. And then I'm going to set that equal to 4 minus 1, which is 3. Right? 4 minus 1 is 3. Now I'm pretty much done, except what I want to do is I can look at it and I can see that all three of these can have a 3 factored out of them, right? I can divide all of them by 3. And so what I'm finished with, these 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 3 once, leaving a negative, and then 3 goes into 3 once. So I end up with x minus y equals 1. All right, so here's the thing. What I'm trying to do is I want to eventually get x equals something, y equals something, and z equals something. Well, I've already determined in the very first step in the last video that z was equal to something. So what I want to do now is I'm going to say, okay, well, I've got z, so I'm left with x and y. So now I want to get x equal to something. So I need to get rid of my y. So I'm going to do that by taking y and adding it to this side, and that gets rid of this term. And then what I do to one side, I have to do to the other, which is y. So then the final process of this becomes x equals 1 plus y. Okay? So now I have taken two equations and I have found two different variables because of it, my first equation and my second one. All right, so let me move this now. Okay, so now I have the variable z equals something. I have the variable x equals something. And now what I need to do is I'm going to take and I need to get y. I need to find what y is equal to. And then once I find out what all of these are equal to, then I'll be able to start finishing out the problem. So take a look at that for a minute. I'm going to erase some of this to make room for the last part of step 3. But take a look and see if you can understand, or make sure you understand how we got x equals 1 plus y, and you may reflect back a little bit on how we got z equals as well at the very beginning in step 1. So then I'm just taking the variable that was, or the equation written in black, and moving it back up. All right, now we're ready to move on to step 3. Okay, in step 3, we're going to do the exact same thing that we did in step 2. The only difference is at the very end, we're going to make sure that we have y equals something. Okay, and that's what we'll end up having. So right now I have x minus 2y plus, now remember, that z was equal to something, right? So z was equal to the value 1 plus x minus 2y. And remember, this was determined in the last video in the first step, okay, of the problem. Last video, first step of the problem, equals 1. Okay, so what I want to do now is I'm going to look at my term, and since I have discovered what z is, okay, just trying to get this cleaned up so you can follow it a little bit easier. All right, so now this is my new equation, right? The numbers in black or the terms in black are in place of z, okay? So this was z. Okay? This is the value of z. So now I'm going to find like terms, all right? So x is like x, and negative, remember I want to take the sign, the negative or positive sign, in front of the value, right? So negative 2y, and the like term is going to be y, so I have negative 2y here. And then my final terms that are alike are going to be 1 and my positive 1 right here. So I'm going to take minus 1, minus 1, because there's no variable, there's no x and there's no y next to this 1 right here. And so that's what makes this term and this term identical. And I need to get them to the same side. So I subtract the 1 so that this cancels. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. And now I combine like terms. So x plus x is 2x, and negative 2y and negative 2y is going to be wait, where did I? Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. Negative 2y, negative 2y. Sorry, I kind of went brain dead for a minute. So going back, my first terms to kind of rehash them real quick for my hang up. X plus the x gave me my 2x. Okay? And now my negative 2y and my negative 2y gives me a negative 4y equals, and then 1 minus 1 gives me 0. Now it's pretty much done, except again, kind of like the last one, there's terms that I can simplify it. So to simplify it, I'm going to say divided by 2, because as long as I divide all terms by 2, I can simplify it, but they all have to be able to do by all. So 2 goes into 2, that's once, leaving me with x, minus 2 into 4 is 2, y, my term just drops down, equals, and 2 into 0, 0 divided by 2 is 0. So this leaves me now pretty much, I'm getting pretty close to being done, right? The only thing left is to make, because I have a z equals something, and I have an x equals something. So now I need a y to equal something. So I want to take let's see. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's just leave this how it is for now. I think we can do it with this. Let's just leave it here. X minus 2y, and we'll just take that, and I'll show you how this will work. So I want to take now, since I'm done with that, with step 3, I'm going to take and just move it over here, put it together, and get ready for the final step in this. All right, so what I've now done, step 1, I found z. In the last video, and in this video, I set x equaled, and then I used the third term and came up with that right there. Okay. All right, so we're going to stop this video and we're going to move on to part 3 of the third video, and that will finish this out. This is the long section right here, the more difficult one. So study this really well and then be ready to move on to the next section of this problem.